As the narrative begins, a shot is taken of Captain Deuce Stevens, a strong and no-nonsense former member of the military who is now working as a private investigator. He is seen standing in front of a large structure that has glass walls. You are currently at the office of Dr. Finn McAllister, a psychologist who provides consultation services to both high-profile customers and members of the military. Reluctantly, Deuce has consented to visit Finn, who was suggested to him by an old friend from the military as someone who may assist him in unwinding. The expression on Deuce's face is one of stoicism and lack of interest as he reluctantly makes his way through the revolving door. Having to talk about his thoughts is the last thing he wants to do at this moment, since his body is stiff and his head is loaded with memories of numerous deadly missions. The office of Finn is a sleek and contemporary space that is adorned with soothing artwork. The calm environment only serves to increase Deuce's level of distrust. He does a quick glance around, feeling uneasy about the peace and quiet. While adjusting his round-rimmed glasses, Finn, a well-groomed and soft-spoken man in his mid-40s, is sat behind a large desk on the other side of the room. With a warm smile on his face, Finn stands forward and introduces himself as Captain Stevens. "I am pleased to finally meet you." In reaction, Deuce groans and assumes a defensive stance by crossing his arms. "Yes, that's okay. Let's put an end to this, shall we?" There is a knock on the door, however, before they have even had a chance to begin. Step forward April, a longtime friend of Deuce's who has been around for a number of years. Currently in her late 30s, April is a fiery, self-assured, and unpredictable individual. Having worked as a con artist in the past, she is now employed as a private consultant, and her business practices frequently include a fine border between legal and unlawful activities. The history of April and Deuce is a convoluted one, consisting of a mixture of sexual tension that has not been addressed and unfinished business from a case that they worked on together. The door is opened by April without her knocking twice. As soon as she walks in, the atmosphere undergoes a dramatic change, as if she were the owner of the establishment. She is dressed in a smart, fitted attire that she is wearing over a sleek leather jacket. The sight of Deuce causes her eyes to slightly expand, but she doesn't show any sign of surprise because she's smiling. It was Deuce Stevens, still ruminating, as I can see. "How long has it been since we last spoke?" As he approaches her, Deuce's face remains expressionless, but his eyes narrow in concentration. "No, it is not long enough." As Finn glances between the two of them, he is able to sense the tension that is present in the room physically. His throat is cleared by him. "Miss, April, was that the month? In my opinion, you are a little bit early for your scheduled appointment." "What's your appointment?" When Deuce raises an eyebrow, he is beginning to feel suspicious. "What are you doing in this location?" A careless shrug is given by April, and her smile remains unflappable. "Thought I'd stop by and get my brain examined. Make sure that I am still sane after dealing with you for all these years, in case you were wondering." At the same time that Deuce is laughing, there is a glimmer of something in his eyes, and it is memories of their troubled history. Finn, who is always a professional, intervenes to settle the conflict before it escalates. "It would appear that we are in agreement here. I would like to suggest to Captain Stevens and Miss April that it would be beneficial to take advantage of this chance to do an impromptu group session. It is obvious that the two of you have a history in common that could conceivably be beneficial to be discussed." Immediately, Deuce can be seen shaking his head. There is no way that I came here to have a session of therapy with her." April, on the other hand, appears to be considering the concept with interest. "Oh, that's so funny, Deuce. Please don't tell me that you're frightened of doing some introspection of your own." Despite the fact that he is visibly agitated, Deuce ultimately returns to his seat and clenches his jaw. "That's fine, but you shouldn't anticipate any profound chats." A grin appears on April's face as she takes a seat next to him, crossing her knees and folding her arms in a mischievous manner. The phrase, "wouldn't dream of it." At the point where Finn starts to inquire about the history, the narrative transitions into a flashback. As the flashback plays out, Deuce and April are seen cooperating on a clandestine mission that took place many years ago. for the purpose of infiltrating a criminal organization that was involved in the trafficking of weapons. April had been engaged by Deuce's team. It was Deuce's responsibility to safeguard her and make certain that the operation went off without a hitch, despite the fact that he was hesitant to put his faith in her because of her history. In terms of their relationship, this operation marked a significant turning point. Over the course of their relationship, Deuce and April had established a mutual regard for one another, and there had been instances of unspoken attraction between them. On the other hand, the operation had an unintended consequence when April, against orders, made the decision to pursue her own goal, which was to steal vital intelligence for her own benefit. Deuce was incensed by this treachery, and they had not communicated with one another since the mission had come to a chaotic conclusion. In the flashback, there is a lot of suspense, shooting, close calls, and moments that are almost romantic but never quite materialize. In the present moment, Deuce's hands become clenched into fists as he thinks about the events of the past. "You almost got us both killed that night, April," Deuce says. His voice is low and menacing. "It was almost your fault." A tinge of seriousness appears in April's eyes as she looks at him, and her cheerful mood begins to go away. "Deuce, I did what I needed to do," I said. "You are familiar with me." Deuce responds with a chilly tone. "You used me. All of us were fooled by you." Finn is paying close attention to the conversation because he has a feeling that this encounter is the key to resolving both of their feelings that have not yet been resolved. As he speaks cautiously, he says, "It seems as though both of you are still harboring a great deal of resentment from that mission. However, it is possible that it is time for you to stop and consider if you truly blame each other or whether there is anything else at play." The focus of April's eyes narrows as she leans forward. "What exactly is the definition of that, Doctor?" Deuce is the one that Finn goes to. "It would appear that April's actions have caused you harm on a level that extends beyond your work life, Captain Stevens. Would it be possible that you also experienced a sense of betrayal on a personal level?" It is obvious that Deuce is not enjoying this line of questioning because she gives Finn a look. In a snappy manner, he says, "I don't mix personal feelings with work." April moves her head to the side and looks at Deuce with a fresh sense of curiosity. "Do you agree with that, Deuce? Mainly due to the fact that from where I am seated, it appears that you took criticism personally." During the course of the session, Deuce gradually and reluctantly starts to reveal more of himself. Although he acknowledges that he had feelings for April when they were on the assignment, he has come to the conclusion that her betrayal has rendered it impossible for him to ever trust her again. April, on the other hand, explains that although she had been operating in her own self-interest with the intention of hurting Deuce personally, she had never intended to do so. In point of fact, she developed feelings for him as well. But her life had always been focused on surviving, and she was unable to figure out how to let someone in. Both of them are taken aback by this confession that they have made to one another, and for a brief period, the tension that exists between them appears to lessen. Through his patient observation, Finn gives people the opportunity to work through their feelings. As he falls back in his chair, Deuce, who is still acting tense but clearly affected, does so. "So, what should we do now? Are we going to go back to acting as if none of this ever took place?" With a smirk on her face, April's voice is softer than it was before. "Perhaps we should begin by not hateful toward one another." The door suddenly opens by itself, and a tall, frightening man dressed in a dark suit walks in. This occurs just as the atmosphere in the room is beginning to change. Dmitri is the name of the someone who is someone from April's past. He is a potentially dangerous figure that she believed she had left behind. In addition to being a member of the same criminal organization that she had previously infiltrated, he has now come hunting for her. A chilling smirk appears on Dmitri's face as he murmurs, "April, we haven't seen each other in a very long time." Despite the fact that April's face becomes slightly pale, she rapidly recovers and stands up next to Deuce. "I had the impression that we had resolved our business a very long time ago, Dmitri." Dmitri lets out a chuckle. "April, business is never really determined to be settled. You have taken something away from us, and it is now time for you to make amends." Finn, who is obviously out of his element, observes in disbelief as the overall level of tension in the room continues to rise. When Deuce and April come to the realization that Maitri is not going to back down, they immediately engage in action. When it comes time to arrange their escape, the years of experience they have gained from working together in high-pressure situations kick in. Deuce, who is known for his ability to think strategically, immediately evaluates the possible escapes and weapons that are accessible in the room. By utilizing her wit and agility, April is able to divert Maitri's attention for a sufficient amount of time for Deuce to create an opening. There are a number of high-stakes, fast-paced instances in which Deuce and April collaborate in order to outmaneuver Maitri and his fellow soldiers. They make their getaway from the office and race through the streets of the city, their common past, and the feelings that they have not satisfactorily resolved propelling them ahead. An exciting confrontation takes place at an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the town, which serves as the story's climax. Despite the fact that Deuce and April are in a difficult situation, they have been able to amass sufficient intelligence about Maitri's organization to turn the tables. There is an exciting sequence of action that culminates in Deuce's martial skills and April's cleverness working together to eliminate Maitri for good. Deuce and April are standing next to one another as the dust settles, each of them breathing heavily but feeling victorious. In the midst of their processing of everything that has transpired, there is a brief pause of stillness between them. Taking a look at April, Deuce's expression becomes more soothing. "So, what should we do now?" When April smiles, it is a smile that is genuine and authentic. "Well, Captain Stevens, perhaps it's time for us to stop trying to avoid seeing each other anymore." Last but not least, Deuce and April make their way back to Finn's office, but this time they do it voluntarily. They are no longer adversaries, but they are not yet entirely certain of who they are. They are sitting next to one another on the couch. As he recognizes the shift in their relationship, Finn gives them a kind smile. As Finn leans forward with a knowing look on his face, he asserts, "So, how do we proceed from this point on?" Following a brief exchange of glances, Deuce and April both break into a smile for the very first time. Things is Deuce who says, "We figure it out." After that, the narrative comes to a close, leaving the future of their relationship open to an infinite number of prospective outcomes.